the U.S. House could pass a bill that could ban TikTok nationwide. Now, of course, that's quite problematic. A lot of people immediately were like, well, what the fuck? I like my TikTok. Why are you taking my treat away? And as of now, the House has passed it. Now, will it actually pass in the Senate? I do not know. I think this is fucking ridiculous. Why is this the priority for legislation? Because we are lazy, corrupt pieces of shit in the American Congress. Biden gave the green light by saying he'd sign it. I personally think it is disgusting. I think it's gross. Are there problems with TikTok? Yes. Are these problems that are these the same exact problems that persist in every other social media platform? Absolutely. The fact that they are trying to get the Chinese government, the Chacom divestment from TikTok, ByteDance, from divesting in TikTok, is specifically because the American government is fucking trying to bully an international company into selling this incredibly successful product that 170 million Americans use to an American. It's unimaginable. It is ridiculous. It's fucking gross. It's peak state capitalism. And it's the worst kind of peak state capitalism. Land of the free, my fucking ass. They're talking about it as though, oh my God, TikTok is a surveillance thing. Okay, I've talked about this a million times over. Obviously, all of the concerns that people have for TikTok exists across the board. This is just pure extortion, and it's also pure control. They do not like that TikTok's lack of regulation or its own regulatory interests are different than the social media platforms that are controlled by the American government in some ways, whether it be Twitter, whether it be Facebook, it does not matter, whether it be Google. These are all companies that have backdoors with the intelligence community. These are all companies that will inevitably not allow certain kinds of commentary to exist, or at least cast it aside. They can be bullied by the right-wing Republicans in general. TikTok, on the other hand, does not really have those same considerations because it's not an American company. It's not owned by an American. I think for two different reasons, Congress is desperate for pushing the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications app. Reason number one, interest rates go up, money is no longer free. The Silicon Valley social media and also Silicon Valley tech bubble is bursting. Mass layoffs. There's obviously a company that is not beholden to those same financial troubles and financial struggles. That company is a Chinese company, ByteDance, that owns TikTok. TikTok is popping off. American capital owners salivate at the prospect of being able to purchase this by strong-arming the company, by utilizing the state. This is the most anti-capitalist thing you can fucking do. It's the most like anti-competition, anti-capitalist thing you can ever do. This is pure nationalist interest, pure capitalist nationalist interest, in the sense that it is this is capitalism in practice and not capitalism in theory. We will never get like real expropriation in this motherfucking country for a company like Boeing, for example, which is floated and kept alive by so many subsidies. But God forbid there's another company out there that is like competing with Facebook. Oh no, we don't want that. We hate Facebook, as you know, I'm talking we as in like Congress. Congress always talks about how much they hate Facebook, but then they'll go and work at the behest of Facebook. It is ridiculous to try and force ByteDance to divest from their own successful product. It is insane. What an insane thing that we are trying to do here. It's incredibly hypocritical. It sucks. But there's also the other side of this, because a bill like this can only get a lot of play if there are real valid concerns. Are there real valid concerns with respect to data privacy? Absolutely. Those concerns are not on TikTok alone. Those concerns exist for every social media company and everything that you do online, as a matter of fact, because in the United States of America, we have data brokers, literally are constantly sucking all of your data and spitting it back out and selling it to people. That is unacceptable. Regulate it. That's not about regulating TikTok, however. That's about regulating all the social media. That would be what a responsible government would do. Of course, we are not a responsible government. We are an irresponsible government filled to the brim with corrupt babies. Another problem, TikTok has a massive influence in the minds of Americans. I've often talked about how a Chinese company has a Chinese version of TikTok. It's called Douyin. You will never see on Douyin the shit that bangs on TikTok. The Chinese government heavily regulates what kind of content people see. Okay, it is as close to a walled garden as you can get, the Chinese firewall. Obviously, this doesn't mean that they are banning everything and anything. They do make sure, especially for younger audiences, like they make sure to tailor the content very specifically to the interest that will, I guess, focus on Chinese prosperity, museum TikToks, rather than, TikToks of how ice giants are alive. So is there something that the government could do, potentially regulate the things that people are seeing on TikTok? That has a lot of First Amendment issues. I don't know how the perfect way to do that would look like. I feel like companies should implement their terms of services that they claim they care about, hate speech laws and whatnot. That is a real problem for Americans, okay? That's a real problem for the American government because, let's be real, Elon Musk owns Twitter. At the end of the day, the American government can clamp down on Elon. They can say no more government contracts if you don't fucking get your shit together. They don't, because Elon is right-wing, and that is not disruptive to the forces, to the powers that be. That is not disruptive to the the current oppressive structural hierarchies that we exist under. No matter how Nazi Elon goes, the American government's not gonna, go, hey man, maybe you fucking regulate your platform a little bit. He is not offensive to the powers that be because he is the powers that be. I guess. Is that the right way to say it? He is the powerful figure. He is a billionaire. TikTok on its own is very genuinely, legitimately disruptive for many. Here is the leaked audio of the Apartheid Defense League, ADL, Chief Executive Jonathan Greenblatt freaking out because global youth aren't listening to Israel and what Israel has to say about its own apartheid.
But I also want to point out that we have a major generational problem. All the polling I've seen, ADL's polling, ICC's polling, independent polling, suggests this is not a left-right gap, folks. The issue in the United States of support for Israel is not left and right. It is young and old. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z.
Do I think this bill is AIPAC's doing? No, because the interest in trying to sell TikTok to an American came far before Jonathan Greenblatt started chirping about how teens on TikTok are pro-homo.
Our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Tag Lee.
This just gives additional interest. This is just extra. This is just a little bit of extra on the side. It ain't gonna hurt nobody. It makes people a little bit even more excited, more enthusiastic to go along with this kind of thing.
The same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations need to put our energy toward this, like, fast. Because again, like, we've been chasing this left-right divide. It's the real game is the next generation. Idiots in the West are falling in line in ways that are terrifying. Last thing I'll just say, we saw a dramatic change in the language of the activists here in America on October the 8th. The language of groups that we've long tracked who've long been problematic.
Why are you tracking pro-Palestinian groups and activists? So strange. Because the Apartheid Defense League did not change its ways since the 90s when they got busted for directly doing the exact same thing, this time defending the other apartheid state at the time, South Africa.
Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace, they flicked like this and went to like Iranian propaganda. The language I could show you from their toolkits, because our analysts are in their groups. We saw this again.
Like, they have literal spies in the activist groups. And of course, many platforms would never, in previous years, would never even allow this kind of thing, would never even allow this kind of conversation to occur. So I think that, like, this is a legitimate issue for people who want to control TikTok. They want to turn it into Instagram. They want to turn it into Facebook. Meta literally openly bans you or suppresses you for being pro-Palestine. They openly do it, for the record. Here is Human Rights Watch. Meta's broken promises. Systemic censorship of Palestine content on Instagram and Facebook. That's the Human Rights Watch, dog. This is not like, we're not fucking making shit up. And that's precisely what is very frustrating about TikTok, because they do not have that same stress points, as they are not beholden to the American State Department interests. They do not have the same interest. They want to control all of the narrative, and they recognize that the most successful social media platform as it stands, is one that is uncontrollable. This attempt at regulating the internet is very different than all previous attempts. All the other ones failed, I think in part because practically they would have been unenforceable, but since the internet has consolidated into less and less platforms, which make it unfortunately significantly easier to censor, I'm worried we're watching the slow death of the free internet. The same thing happened in the US paper press in the 1940s. This is a censorship bill, 100%. One thing that a lot of people in the Western world don't recognize is that civil liberties are very important and kind of keep this shit going. Because if you don't do civil liberties, you have to do other stuff. You have to actually like improve people's economic circumstances. And we're not building any high-speed rail. The dam will break. You either have to build the fucking high-speed rail and like genuinely show to the people that like there is prosperity to be had, that the government does have your best interest at heart, which is what they do in China, but then they suppress your civil liberties. So people are like, okay, well, fuck. I mean, sure, at least the situation seems good. There is like a collective consciousness surrounding a genuine improvement into people's material conditions. Now, of course, as time goes by and that worsens and the future prospects of the younger generation in China worsens, you will also see people demanding more civil liberties, for the record. But in America, we ain't got any of that. Why? Because we got $5 jalapeno poppers. We got fucking just slop, okay? We got the bread and we got the circuses. Now, if you take away the circus, well, Rome's gonna fucking burn. And I don't think these guys understand that. Or maybe they think they can continue, limiting and making you feel like you have this choice in what you are watching and what you are consuming, while simultaneously consolidating it and making it worse and worse. Here's how it starts. To protect the national security of the United States from the threat posed by foreign adversary-controlled applications such as TikTok and any successor application or service, and any other application or service developed or provided by ByteDance or an entity under control of ByteDance Limited. Their goal is to protect the national security of the United States. Everything is sold from the same militant framework, bro. This is a social media application. You are not doing this to protect national security interests. You are doing this legitimately, first and foremost, because you want to sell it to an American, or at least like someone who is an ally. You want to give it to a person that is on the nice boy list. Obviously, it's also beneficial because when you sell it to someone on the nice list, let's say like Elon Musk or whatever the fuck, right? Not him, obviously. I think he's against this bill for understandable reasons, because he himself also has a lot of foreign nations that have invested Saudi Arabia into Twitter. So that might be a little bit tricky for him personally if this were to push. So I think he has his own personal interest in making sure that this doesn't fucking happen. The problems that we are talking about with respect to algorithms, with respect to data privacy, with respect to surveillance, all of those problems persist in every single social media platform. We have the American government. If they were responsible, if they truly cared about these issues, what would they do? They wouldn't try to divest, they wouldn't try to forcibly divest ByteDance from TikTok. They would try to regulate all social media platforms that enter the American marketplace. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that because this has nothing to do with that at all. This, first and foremost, is about making money for a sector that has a lot of money and a lot of lobbying that's currently blowing up a little bit. In the simplest, most reductive terms, they don't like that the Chinese app is better than the American ones. 170 million Americans use TikTok, myself included. Democracy.